All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to TableTalk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bad Luck Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello, I don't see myself on your thing.
Yeah, it says your Fugi thing it got fixed, and then I need to refresh it.
Try.
I did.
Is there anything on my end? Okay.
There it goes. I don't know why that was. Very interesting. It was working literally before when I was checking, and you changed it. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows?
This
Computer stuff. Weird. But hey, so like always, we always get started about like 5 minutes after the stream gets going, and we'll get to our topic. We've been getting to our topics around the 20-25 minute mark. So if you're tuning in and you just want to get to the topic, there you go. But we got some fun stuff today for Pathfinder. Paizo just had a live stream recently.
Oh,
about
I didn't even notice.
The Qianxia stuff. So, yo, Onyx, what's up? And good evening there, Muffin Hydra. So, we got some stuff coming out from Paizo. I know this year is going to be actually kind of nuts. And as well, for people who haven't heard, Archive of Nethys is... I got an update from Archive of Nethys. So...
Is this mean that I'm correct? Is Nethys gonna die?
We'll see.
Oh, shit.
And what's up, Dead Phoenix? How you doing? So, before we get started with all that, like usual, we have our chat while people are hopping in. How you been, Alex?
Interesting. Now, this is a preemptive question here, because I know one of the things we're going to do for 2024, specifically on my behest as well, is there is going to be the Nurgle counter, the times my soul was claimed by the Lord of Plagues and Contagion. Like, migraines count as a disease?
If you missed for anything, not like for anything health related, it's gonna be a Nurgle counter.
Okay, good to know. We'll see then, because this past entire week has been me with migraine, and I've been treated for it. And to sum up, a nice big conversation with my doctor I had like literally an hour and a half ago. It was and the next week's gonna be pretty rough too. Like, thumbs up, because I'm getting treated for an issue I've had since literally as long as I can remember, and one of the main things is I need to stop taking the medicine that makes me feel better. So now I'm going to not feel better for a week. But after that, I'm fucking cruising apparently. Which actually, if that ever comes up for anyone else in audience that views like right now or later, do not overtake like ibuprofen or blood thinners or anything like that, like for headaches. If you have that and you overtake it, there's a genuine serious chance that medication will cause a loop in your body to create a chronic issue that'll be repeating consistently. So try not to overuse it. So, yeah. And then other than that, just dang medical stuff popping up. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to keep crushing at my normal stuff as best I can, though. That's all I can do.
Yeah. I've been trying to hop back on. I released my video this week on the Why You Should Play Pathfinder. That's been a fun video, actually. A lot of people hopping in saying, "Oh, right, you convinced me." It was really funny. If you watched the vampire game, you might have heard the story already. But I was just sitting there, and I get a notification from YouTube saying someone important has made a comment on your video, and that's just what they do anytime someone above a certain sub threshold like comments on any of your stuff. So I go and I check it out, and it's like this fitness YouTube channel dude with like 73k subs or something like that, and his comment was, "All right, you convinced me." So I guess it's working. I guess the video's done exactly what it was intended to do, which is
Which,
get
I mean,
people into
hey,
Pathfinder.
the of the fitness accounts to get, like, the guy that commented as well seems like a genuinely cool guy.
Yeah.
In the fact that, like, in that vampire VOD, I directly am like, oh shit, Joey Swole. Uh, that, like, Joey Swole called me out, which, for those who don't know, Joey Swole is a great fucking guy. He largely does TikTok content, and his large thing is a big buff fitness guy that's doing his absolute damnedest to help enforce gym etiquette and make sure people are comfortable when they walk into the gym. Basically, going on those accounts that are like making fun of people at the gym or being shitty and recording themselves at the gym. In that video, the call out in question is Joey Swole saying that the channel that commented is a cool guy and his hair is beautiful.
Nice.
So it's like, it's peak clickbait, and it's like, then going through this dude's channel is, he actually seems chill. Which, hell yeah, as someone who's been on that fitness journey for a good while now, yes, build these positive relationships around the gym and exercise and stuff. They're doing the Lord's work, so good on them.
Yeah. And also, it's just good to have a good, like, healthy like body positivity around the TTRPG space.
Exactly.
In general. There's this big thing back in the day, like, a lot of people nowadays might not even have realized, but, like, Joe Manganiello, it was like the epitome of people you didn't expect to play tabletop, because there's this whole thing about, like, jocks not doing nerdy stuff like tabletop or whatever. And so that's like Joe Manganiello. That's what, like, his big thing was proving, nah, you can lift weights, you can get shredded, and you can be a badass like anti-paladin in TTRPGs.
Oh, yeah.
So,
it's like, breaking down that specific stereotype is dope, and also it's really funny in how, according to a large chunk of, like, people, especially in entertainment, no, they've been nerds the whole time.
Yeah.
A lot of those buff dudes, because you just because you work out all the time doesn't mean you have hobbies. And one of my favorite bits is the fact that if you want to look into it, all you have to do is find certain like wrestlers, like WWE people, because WWE is essentially drama kids, like, growing up, but they got ripped.
Yeah.
Like, because that's all it is. It's just theater kids. But like, you work out also. A lot of those, like, those, at least the cool ones, and the great people that come out of that, a lot of them are very nerdy.
Yeah. So, it's been good, and there's been a lot of things. I meant to produce more videos this week than ended up. Like, I haven't even produced a Lancer video yet. I was supposed to do one today, but I don't know. It's been just it's the process of me just taking it slower, because I feel like the Why You Should Play Pathfinder video came out as well as it did because I took my time to, like, really and I don't even think that one was as good as it was. I was coming up with a script in my head, and I missed out some of the talking points, but it seems it still had a pretty good impact regardless. And the editing style was actually not too bad, considering. So what were the things I missed?
Yeah, I'm curious, what did you miss? What did you feel like you left out of the video?
I was gonna talk more about some of the silly combinations of things players could do in the game, because one of the biggest things, and I think it got across in the video, was just all the ridiculous concepts you can do in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And I was gonna mention, like, some bizarre combo of being, like, a psychic shoonie who is a martial artist on the side or something like that. Just to state, like, how out there character concepts are, because I feel like what people want in tabletop more than anything is just ridiculous ideas to work off of.
Yeah, you want that fun concept, fun build, fun, like, character core concept, which is the cool thing of Pathfinder. It's how I sell it to people. There was for a bit a small game I'd play with my partner where they would talk about like a character they're working on for like some larger art project they're doing, and then like that they say like, oh, I want to play this character in like D&D, and then I'm like, well, all that stuff that you're talking about, like if you can actually do all the stuff you're talking about in Pathfinder, in D&D 5e you can't really. Also, yeah, you know what? Wrestling is live action role playing. Like
Pretty
a lot
much,
of
yeah.
that is improv. If you know the tells for it, if you want a fun one, whenever somebody is in a pin, look at their eyebrows
Yeah.
because there is a specific facial tell that a lot of them do when they're signaling for the other person to break out of the hole. I do have a new appreciation for WWE in the fact that God, it's really fun. It's
Yeah.
goofy. It's such a great time, especially when it's the personalities that their entire bit is they're just kind of goofy and fun.
Mm-hmm.
It is very fun to just watch people throw each other around.
Yeah. And nice thumb ugly. And you know what? That's actually something I should have mentioned in the video. I
Oh
also
yeah.
didn't mention Archive and Nethys. Just like, oh yeah, you can also get all the rules for this game for free. Which was another big miss. And then yeah, the number of times Paizo puts like a lot of their books out in a pretty cheap Humble Bundle in the year is pretty insane. Every year for like Comic Book Day or something like that, you can get a lot of the books for like $15.
Oh yeah, completely. Like I actually am part of the Humble Bundle like choice thing. Like I do the monthly subscription because I actually use Humble Bundle a lot. I like it a lot. I get really good deals because of it and like all that stuff. The amount of times I can count that Humble Bundle has emailed me being like Pathfinder bundle, where I'm every time like it gets posted in our Discord, I know like hours beforehand. Because
Yeah.
like I see it first and then I look at him like, my man, I'm already hooked. I don't need this content. I'm
Yeah.
good.
I already own it, please.
Yeah, basically. Though there is a giant Call of Cthulhu bundle right now.
Yeah, and actually that's another good reason. If you have not joined our official Discord, join the Discord linked in the description or below on Twitch. There's a hyperlink there that you can go to. We if something comes out like a Humble Bundle or something, it will 100% show up in our chat, like with
Yeah, it gets
no
posted
problems.
quickly.
We also have like an internet tech guy or like a internet security guy who always keeps us up to date on like the various things. Like if you didn't know currently, Discord automatically opts everyone in for a recording your voice for clips purposes thing that you need to manually turn off if you don't want Discord just recording your voice. So
Yeah, I immediately was like, I'm good. I don't. Discord's been playing around with AI shit. I would rather my voice not be sold.
yeah. So I instantly went and turned that off as well. And again, that's another great, Crassy man. He pulls a lot of weight on the channel, honestly, or at least the Discord. So check that out. Also, check your Discords. Make sure that's off so that you're not unintentionally giving your voice away to the internet because that's scary. And yeah, so I mean, we got a lot of really, really good things coming up this year. It's just been kind of a struggle getting back into the workflow for me personally. And also my sleeping schedule has been borked. And it wasn't even like I stayed up too late one night, kind of borked. It was just, I just started sleeping like 9-10 hours a day for some reason.
Oof.
And so it's just like my schedule kept getting pushed back further and further every time.
That is rough. That's a rough thing to just recover from. Yeah, I honestly can say I've felt the same, though granted it's because of health reasons that like the push was a little harder. Though I will also mention, I just put out, if anyone is interested, a video on Malkavians from Vampire the Masquerade. I did a clan lore video. And after, like, basically the entire process, like, okay, I gotta go record, let me edit it. once I got to editing, I was like zooming. I was like, ah, hell yeah, I'm back. And so I actually am putting out. I'm recording tonight and gonna try to put out the Warhammer Iceberg that I've been creating. I'm gonna release some more parts of that because every time I try to record it, something happens. I was gonna do it last week, and then I got a migraine, so couldn't do anything about it. But now I'm here and I'm ready, and I've been getting back to 40K work. It's been nice.
Yeah. And then I was actually gonna release the Monarch video. I know James has been getting teased with the Monarch video coming out. For
Does he like the
Lancer.
Monarch? The Monarch is like
I
his
don't
favorite
know.
mech.
I really don't know.
Huh? I just don't know what there is to like about the Monarch in the first place. You know.
James going feral in the background.
The unrecorded or the recorded but unreleased and unedited Lancer tier list I pushed us to record. Haven't done anything on where I very pointedly say that the Monarch is one of my least favorite mechs in Lancer.
Yeah. Only for its design.
Oh yeah, I don't like its design. I think its concept is dope. I just don't like mechs that look like mechs.
And last night it was just weird. It was like I was chilling with friend. We were playing Cassette Beasts, which is actually a really cool monster tamer game. It's really cool. And
it's on my wish list actually. I've been looking at it for a bit.
It's good. It's really good. I recommend it highly. It's also going to come out with multiplayer soon. So, and it has co-op, so you can play with another person. I was playing with a good friend Booter last night, so that was
it's this game. Yeah, this game looks so cool.
It's really good.
I saw the trailer and I was like, I would love this.
And so we were playing, and it sounded like one of my windows was opening or something. It was just a weird sound, and I couldn't figure out. My windows cannot be opened from the outside of the house. There's like clamps and everything, so like I don't know what the noise was, and it kept happening. And so I got super paranoid, and so I just ended up staying up way later than normal because I just was like, is someone outside my house? I'm not gonna go outside at night when it's blowing a storm outside to possibly someone out there. I'm safe in my house. So I was just like awake to try to dissuade them. I think in the end, what it came out to be was the wreath we had on our door was sliding, and we had it like on this door hook thing that kind of goes over your door.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it was.
That makes sense. And man, also just Cassette Beast is on Game Pass, so I can actually play it.
Yeah.
I'm downloading it now because you know what? I need a monster tamer, man. Power World comes out in like 8 days.
I know.
It's so rough. I just want to play Power World with y'all.
It's gonna be good. I'm excited.
It's gonna be so good. I do plan to set up the dedicated server like the moment I can, which I think it's midnight on like Thursday. So I'm gonna set that up and we can get going on Friday. Like day of release, we'll have a dedicated server and we'll set everything up.
So yeah, so my saving schedule's just been borked, and I just haven't been getting the time. I really need to get back on it, but again, I'm being gentle with myself because I know the rest of this year is insane. We have so much that we're gonna talk about because today, or not today, recently, Paizo had a live stream for their Qianxia stuff over on Twitch, where they talked about some of the stuff that's coming out for their newest book, world book coming out. I'm pretty sure they did recently. Oh, that's PaizoCon. What was their most recent video? I'm pretty sure they had one. What's all their streams? I'm just seeing nothing but categories here. Recent broadcast. Here we go. Yes, 6 days ago they had a Paizo Live talking about Starfinder stuff, lots of Starfinder 2, Monster Core, and I guess they're getting ready for Tiansha stuff because the Tiansha book is coming out soon. Monster Core is the next actual book coming out, and all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to be covering a lot of, so I'm not going to do what changed for the Monster Core, but I just, when it's like a spell or something, I can be like, all right, here you go. But like if it's a whole ass monster stat block, I just that'd just be too much work. So
Also, just most of like the players that I don't think they care that much. The DMs
yeah.
would want to know, like the players out there. I don't know. I'm also of the opinion of personally not reading through the monster book when you're playing through a game. Like as a player, it makes it more fun. I
Mm-hmm.
like discovering the monsters as it goes on, so that it's really cool when something changes and you're like, "That's unfamiliar. That's unfamiliar. Oh god, oh god."
Yeah.
That seems more fun.
Uh but I will be talking about the dragons, which are coming out, the new dragons that they're releasing, because, you know, where they're moving away from chromatic and metallic dragons. So we got the
That I'm
tradition
curious.
dragons plus more and all kinds of stuff. Very excited for that. And I'll probably touch on anything else that is like players would be interested in kind of stuff. Maybe some of even this new summons potentially that you can get access to, because, you know, new monsters, potentially new summons that you can use in the games. So we'll be looking into stuff like that. How of the Wild comes out like immediately after that. And that's just a new book that's gonna have like the Minotaur and the Centaur, and you can now play large ancestries for the first time. There's new archetypes. There's a beekeeper archetype where you can attack people with bees, which is really cool.
It does sound fun.
And all kinds of other really cool stuff. I'm hyped, and those archetypes will be the new next set of archetypes I'll be working on the channel. If anyone who has known the channel for a while, I was doing a list of all the archetypes in the game, and then Remaster came out, and I was like, I don't know if I don't know if I want to put out material that might be getting changed because of the remaster changes. Because while not all archetypes are necessarily affected by the changes, some are. And I may already have to redo some of the archetypes I was working on, like the Hell Knight, for instance.
Yeah, that one, because that has direct things with the
Yeah, they
alignment
do
system and
lawful
all that.
damage, which isn't a thing anymore.
Exactly.
I can guess what they're gonna do, but rather than guessing and then needing to fix it, then because of the Herbalist video, yeah, there's some really good archetypes, and Herbalist should be fine. So that one should be okay. But I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the remaster stuff because I want my content to be informative and evergreen, and I don't want to go back and redo videos I've already done. That's really hard as a content creator in general, because I'm really bad about retreading content. So I'm just waiting. So when these new archetypes come out, I'm going to be doing my weekly archetypes again with those. Excuse me, my bad. And there's a lot in that one. That How the Wild book is probably going to be another like in-depth book I'm going to dive into, because it has so many player options that people are going to want to know about. So there's that. Who knows? I mean, Alchemist might, but I don't think the core aspects of Alchemist is going to change. I think if anything, Alchemist might get like master weapon proficiency, maybe. But who knows? I mean, it's like War Priest and Cleric, you know. Everyone's like, "Oh, the changes," and there's some new feats that were really good for War Priest. But other than that, War Priest barely changed. They now get master proficiency at like level 19 or something. So, you know, woo. not the biggest change for most people playing War Priests. But we'll see. We'll see. And that's actually a something to mention as well. Remaster content coming out this next summer. I'm going to be posting daily videos again for 2 weeks or more. Posting stuff about the changes to the Remaster 2, which is the only other big remaster thing, though I will probably get some extra homework because I know Paizo is slowly but surely getting through their errata material for the other books as well. So we're probably going to see some big errata changes, and I will also be reporting on the changes in the erratas. So it's going to be a really busy set of months for me this summer, because we have the Qianxia book. When does the Qianxia book come out? Let's see, setting. It's somewhere in the next couple months. April. So yeah, so pretty much from it's either February or March on, we have there's just gonna be a major book release almost every month with like a couple months in between. Yeah, so it's from March forward. It's gonna be March with Monster Core, then it's April with Qianxia, then it's May with Howl of the Wild.
God, we are eating great.
You know what? I do kind of hope that we get some like Samurai Shinobi archetypes. I don't think they'll be full classes.
Oh,
I
no,
do think they'll be archetypes.
Completely
actually,
agree.
they're not full classes if they're coming, because they haven't been announced as actual classes coming out this year.
It would just make more sense to be archetypes.
Yeah.
The framework is there to, like, functionally, why would you be like, samurai is a class, and then, like, there's other martial combat classes that you could just have be a samurai.
Yeah.
What would be functionally different than, like, a fighter and a samurai?
Yeah, class archetypes. I can get behind class archetypes.
Oh, 100%.
I think that'd be really cool. We need more class archetypes in the game.
I agree. I think it'd be really cool to at least, like, that is a thing I think with Pathfinder that was like, you could there was like master classes or whatever, things that you can
prestige classes.
Later.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a cool thing to introduce to Pathfinder 2nd edition again. To at least, like, there are archetypes that might have a little heft, but you have to wait a little longer to get them, or have some stronger restrictions.
That would be cool. Some archetypes designs for like mid to late game.
Yeah, the stuff where you're like, you can hold off a little. It's like, hey, hold off. You'll get to jump into this later, so you might like miss out on some stuff, but they're going to be a little stronger once you get them. Like, you'll have a lot interesting abilities. Maybe, I don't know how complicated it'd be. Have stuff that can even alter class abilities. Though granted, that mean like every class needs their own version of something, but I don't know.
I think it'll be interesting. I mean,
yeah,
there's tons of options and stuff coming out. And you know what? I've even mentioned one of the probably biggest books. I think it's releasing this next October or sometime around that. Is the War of Immortals.
Oh, that's October.
I think so.
Ooh, that is far.
September, October, sometime, I think, in that range.
Oh, just dropping.
I'm not 100%, so don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of more in that range.
I'm just upset you didn't say January or February 2024.
I'm upset you did say tomorrow.
Yeah, I want it now.
Maybe a Gen Con release. Well, no, I think their Gen Con is mostly they want to focus on Starfinder stuff for Gen Con.
Makes sense.
So we'll have to see for sure, but I'm very certain that we're going to be getting it sometime post August. So or August or later, sometime in that round. And we get 2 new classes. The Animist, which is a both a hybrid version of a prepared and spontaneous caster, which I think is very interesting, and everyone's new favorite class, the Exemplar. Oh yeah, Qianxia I think has the flying sword subclass. If you like Miram, that's coming. I think that's coming in the Qianxia stuff.
That is very cool. I like that stuff a lot.
So we will see. I also need to look through the Ghosts of Seasons to see if any archetypes have released, because they usually release like an archetype or two in each adventure path that they've done.
Yeah, there's like a couple.
My biggest problem is I use Archive of Nethys for video making. It just makes it easier. It's a site that I can just be like, boom, without actually like showing books and like what's in books, because Paizo doesn't like it when you do that. So it's just easier for me to do it that way. And speaking on Archive of Nethys, so Archive of Nethys is a big site that a lot of people rely pretty heavily on, and everyone's been like, okay, but where's the remaster stuff? So recently, Archive of Nethys on the 8th, so just a few days ago, they came out with a post talking about all the new stuff. They are currently in the works, but they have a pretty small team, and they were taking a lot of time off for the holidays. Not only that, but they're making a legacy version of the sites, and along with a remaster version of the sites. So they're doing almost a whole website overhaul. With all of this data input is insane. They said currently that they are planning on finishing up soon, but they got a lot of work to do. They're 80 to 90% done with these spells, including hyperlinks, which I love the hyperlinks. So I'm very glad that they're putting those in.
Thank God.
But they'll then need to audit them to make sure everything's working right, so that's going to take some time. They're only about 25-30% done with feats, and they're 15% done with the new magic items being added in. But they said otherwise, all the content in Player Core and GM Core are in the system. So they're not going to give us any more estimates because they keep failing to meet the estimated dates. They're hoping it will be soon. And you got to remember that a lot of this is like done pro bono. They don't really get paid all too much. I think they get help with like the server stuff and donations, but it's not a ton, and they don't do this as full time. So they're currently in the works, and we probably won't be seeing it till at least February, if not later, which is very sad. But I'm happy that they're willing to do it and are working so hard for our sake. So for those of you who've been wondering when Archive of Nethys, this question comes up all the time. This question will keep coming up. They are working on it. They're putting up as much effort and time into it as possible. But
there's a lot of detail when you have a tabletop game that has, a lot of detail. Well, I like the fact that they have to do so much just data transfer and data entry in the first part. Like, oh boy.
Yeah, well, and it's just on top of that as well as, again, they're having the two versions of the site, essentially. The legacy, the initial launch stuff, and the remaster stuff. And that's for everyone's benefit. They don't have to do that. It's no longer like what Paizo's going to be producing, but they're doing it because, one, probably Paizo wants them to do it too. But two, they want to make sure that everyone is capable of playing the game the way they want to. So for people who want to play the game as it used to be with all the prior stuff, that will be available, especially since those books that have the old stuff are no longer going to be printed. A site like Archive of Nethys is super valuable. So
I'd be very sad if I as someone who's super big into media conservation, I'm happy they're doing this. Because it'd be very sad if parts of Pathfinder became like lost media down the line.
Yeah. So, that is that update. In addition, Starfinder 2 is going to be releasing their playtest for Gen Con. And the playtest usually comes out like half a year before the actual book will come out. So we'll probably be seeing Starfinder 2 like officially launching some stuff sometime early next year, I would say. And I mean, this site behind me here, the guy with like 3 arms and guns, along with like a dragon, like this is gonna be capable now because Pathfinder 2e and Starfinder 2e are gonna be pretty cross compatible. So
hell yeah,
it's gonna be really good. Now it's not 100%, and some things are slightly different between the two systems. And I'm very curious as to what will be coming. So there's a lot of really cool stuff for Pathfinder coming out this next year, and I'm going to be reporting on all of it. So if you have not done so already, subscribe to the channel or follow us here on Twitch, because we'll probably be talking about it at some point on TableTalk, where we will, we're going to be covering as much, or as I'm going to be covering as much as possible on all this stuff, letting you all know all the player side stuff. There's tons of people doing GM related content. I'll probably also chip in on some GM related content, but I'm more focused on player options and what the players will be dealing with in general. And in fact, I will be releasing, hopefully soon, my how to play Pathfinder 2e like dummies guide video. I'm going to be using Foundry to kind of better represent everything. But yeah, that should also hopefully be like another 15-minute video. I'm trying not to make them too long. So we have a lot of stuff coming up. I will also be doing a lot of material this year on other TTRPGs. And we might also have a chunk of time dedicated to whatever Dungeons and Dragons does at some point.
Which I can break one of them for you. I was on Twitter, just like seeing it do tabletop stuff, and D&D just released a new thing, specifically D&D Japan, with a bunch of reprints of all of like the main rule books, but with an anime art style, to be released in Japan.
That seems racist.
I don't know. It's a Japanese studio that's doing the art.
Okay, fair enough, I guess.
They released the trailer.
Well, yeah, okay, so I do know actually part of that. If you watch Bob World Builder's content, they are, one of the big things that they promised they would do is do more localization for other languages. And so that's probably part of that project.
It definitely seems like it.
I would love to see D&D stuff in an anime style, though, so.
Yeah, I mean, it appeals to it appeals to some people. Just like seeing the art for the little trailer they did. Some of it I'm like, oh, looks, that's a cool character design, and then it's like, next, our rogue characters. Like, as a child, I don't believe in child soldiers in my tabletop. I will post it in our pics and vids for context, in our Discord server for anyone who wishes to see it.
But I will say it is concerning for those who enjoy D&D that we're getting into the year where D&D is supposed to be coming out with its new stuff, and we have nothing.
I think they might have done something recently saying like very clearly that they want to move to live service, because there's an article that dropped for like one of the bigger gaming like sites where people were all like continuing the claim that they're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be the last D&D edition, and everyone's like, sure.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is like that's why I kind of came across as kind of racist to me because I'm just like, Asian people can appreciate like Western art styles too. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be an anime for Japanese people to suddenly enjoy it. The PHP testing stuff is done. Yeah, I know that they've been mentioning a bunch of stuff. It's just I don't know. Like I said, they have been working on stuff. I'm not saying they haven't. It's just crazy how little information about what actually is coming out. Like, you could ask anyone, no one exactly knows what's going on. I don't even think Wizards of the Coast knows exactly what's going on.
I don't know. I think it definitely feels like a situation where people keep the higher ups keep altering shit. Like they just keep changing things. Like new mandate, do this because like we're getting weird backlash. So then it's just it's rough on the people that are working there.
So I will be anytime something huge comes out, like not their what's it called? Their playtest materials stuff.
Unearthed Arcana.
Unearthed Arcana. There we go. Couldn't think about it for a second. Unearthed Arcana stuff, but I will be like anything official. As best as I know, I will be making content on as well. And I don't know if Daggerheart is supposed to be coming out this year. I think it is.
I think it has to be. I keep seeing shit about Daggerheart. Oh, wait a second. Someone literally just tweeted that most of the D&D 1 Unearthed Arcana material is now done. The player's handbook has moved into final writing, editing, and layout.
Yeah, that's what Muffin was just saying.
Yeah. Just, I guess today is the part where shit is, like, really coming out for tabletop stuff. Specifically D&D, it looks like.
It doesn't seem like there's any official information on Daggerheart yet.
No.
And I signed up for the playtest, so whenever that comes around. But Daggerheart is gonna be another thing, and I'm expecting there to be another controversy because people just don't like Critical Role, and they're going to throw a bitch fit no matter what.
True. People are just going to be upset, and then there's the other people where there has to be a solid number of people who are doing the Candle Obscura stuff that didn't actually even hate Candle Obscura, or maybe were just apathetic towards it, only pretending to be annoyed because of those dang old clicks you can get.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, but there's literally just people out there who just they're fighting their holy war for tabletop. By saying anything that's not their version of tabletop is wrong. So
yeah, I mean they're even going and hitting the shit that they used to like go to bat for. Dragonlance had a fun little Twitter spat.
Recently, I remember that. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk about that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We never talked about that.
Yeah. No, we didn't. No, you sent that to me this last weekend, and then it gets even better. Because one of the creators of Dragonlance back in the day was in those replies being like, "You are making this up. Shut up."
Yeah.
Or people making claims.
That.
He's like, "Were you there?" I was, and it's like, "Oh hell yeah, this guy rules."
Yeah. We'll talk about that stuff because that's also super fascinating. And again,
it's really funny.
We'll talk about it here in a moment because it's super funny. And I think this is just going to be an ongoing thing that resurfaces. I mean, it kind of already was. But with the Critical Role stuff coming out, I feel like this stuff is becoming much more hyperbolic. Like, people are jumping up a lot more about it than they used to be. So we'll be talking about that. I might even do some video content on that. Give or take. The problem is that it's just going to be controversial content. There's no way to talk about it, even in a civil way, that people are going to agree on. So it's just interesting. But yeah, so there's going to be a lot of tabletop stuff coming out this year. So if I start off January a little slow, that's pretty reasonable. Also, February is going to be a rough month. It's going to be the anniversary of my father's passing. So there's probably just gonna be not as much work. I'm not gonna get too hung up on that, but I just want you all to know, as some of my most consistent viewers here in the chat, next month's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a hard one. So, you know, I'm gonna be spending a lot of time with my mother as well, and it's just, what can you do? So I'm not stressing. I'm not stressing the beginning of this year. Even if this beginning of this year is very slow for the channel, which it honestly hasn't been. Honestly, my channel, like, at a regular amount, is doing better than it's ever done before. You know, like, if I produced this much material last year, I would be getting 1,000 or less views, or sorry, like 500 or less views every day. Today, I'm getting over 1,000 views a day. Easy, like without trying. If I put out a video, it jumps close to 3,000 or up to like 1.5k views. And we're averaging somewhere around 4 or 5 subs a day, which is pretty good, honestly. We're averaging, you know, about 200 subs a month. So right now the channel is doing pretty well, and I'm not gonna stress about not seeing the big numbers, because I know this year we're gonna blow up. The channel is gonna hit some big strides, because, you know, as I proved during the remaster, no one is gonna be making nearly as much content as I am. Plain and simple. So, you know, I'm not gonna stress, and I'm excited. I'm excited to share it with all of you, because I'm aiming for above 10k subs this year, and I really think we're gonna hit that. And
I think it's very possible.
That's gonna open up a lot more opportunities on the channels. Hopefully, a lot more opportunities to collab with some other people, do some other things. I'm desperately trying to get Thurston Hill for a chat about Starfinder 2 content. I love that he's changed his Twitter to John Starfinder.
Nice.
So I'm very, very curious to see what he has to say about all the Starfinder stuff. We'll be having some other people come on as well this year. Don't want to say too much, you know, just in case some plans fall through. But there's some plans for some other people to come on to TableTalk where we can chat with them, which is going to be really, really cool. And yeah, well, hopefully with the new sponsor opportunities and all kinds of stuff, I want to amp up the channel, you know, get some art, get some new stuff for the channel. Maybe even we might start a Patreon, depending, because I want to force my friends to play more tabletop with me, and the best way to do that is to pay them money. So
true. That's going to be the thing that means I can dedicate more time to it. Because right now, that is my issue with so much creative stuff. It's a logistics problem of, like, just I could spend all my energy at working and working on other avenues, or doing these things I enjoy that produce a little bit of income.
So if I do a Patreon, I'm going to do it for the sole purpose of supporting our live play content mostly. Not that that's what you guys want, but the more live play content I get to do, the more tabletop stuff I get to look at in a year, because we'll be looking at other tabletops, and you guys will get more opportunities to see how other tabletops are played and everything like that. So that's where a lot of that is gonna go. And it's a very big year for the channel in general. But let's talk about the controversies that have been coming up. So you know, Alex, you're the one who brought it up. So tell us about what this Dragonlance Twitter spat was, which it wasn't by the creator of Dragonlance. He just participated in it, but there was something involving Dragonlance and Critical Role.
Yeah, it was a tweet that you sent me partway when we were playing Monster of the Week.
Yeah, I said suffer when I sent it to him.
Yeah, so it is. The tweet is just this. This is the text, and then there's 2 images. It's few want to admit this, but these are the same thing, just in different mediums for different generations, and they both have caused massive, irreversible damage to the hobby that no one ever intended. and it's a picture of the Dragonlance Chronicles, like a big collector edition, and then the cast of Critical Role. Because breaking down as it goes in, primarily the mentality that's going into this is upset over the idea that playing like D&D, for example, is you are getting together and telling a story rather than playing a game. Like, that is the mentality that it is, where there is a decent subsect of people that I'm discovering that do not believe you can tell a story and play a tabletop game at the same time.
Yeah. Ever since, like, looking into Black Lodge, it's been just another world of like, it's something I knew existed. I just didn't know, like, literally there's a YouTube channel dedicated to this idea, you know, which is so funny to me. This whole idea that tabletop is purely a medium for simulationist style of playing tabletop, more or less. That the whole point, the whole idea, tabletop is not worth a damn if your GM isn't a glorified computer running a world for you and you and the party are just a bunch of schmucks running around doing whatever. And the thing is, they don't believe that idea either. But when you bring that up to them, it's just like, okay, but you do understand that, like, if the GM doesn't create a narrative, there's nothing for y'all to do. Like, if there's no problem to fix, then what are your what's the point of your adventure, right?
I had this where I wrote out my comment back in the day, back when it was coming up, of the Candle Obscura review by Black Lodge, where I was very largely like, I'm happy you explained the rules, but what the fuck are you talking about that, like, tabletop games can't have story? And this guy, who was also in your comments for your Candle Obscura, like, why, get it video, was very much going down the line of having a narrative-driven game is immediately like, that's not a real game. You're not playing the game right, like that idea. And me, when I come across stuff like this, stuff I disagree with, or things inherently I see, and I'm like, what the fuck are you yapping about? My first thought is, well, I want to keep pushing, because I need to know, like, I need to understand why you feel this way. Also, narrative play in 40k, like Crusade mode, fucking rules. Crusade is great. It is an excellent way to play the game. So I was pushing until eventually, like, I was able to get, like, the endpoint that I wanted, which was like, okay, here are, like, some scenarios. You're playing Pathfinder and your DM's gonna run Kingmaker. That isn't a game to you. Or say you have that perfect open world campaign, like, you are in a simulation of a world that your DM created. Which also, by the way, I am in a game like that. I've been in a game like that for going on like 4 years now. We don't really have a main plot. We solve a bunch of other plots and arcs and like story stuff that comes up. But we have arcs with like storylines that we solve in the moment. Because you need that, by the way. So I was basically asking, like, okay, so you have like this perfect simulation of a world. But because your DM implemented a main storyline, like you get in any other RPG video game, that is now bad. And the guy just said, yes, that is bad, and that's not true tabletop. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because that is like, you are asking for a very specific style of play that I do not believe that all of you can find.
Yeah, it's actually impossible. Sure. Just going to ask you too. Yeah, these people absolutely don't believe what they're saying most of the time, because they may think the thing is that, like, they think that they dislike something very specifically. They dislike the whole idea of the narrative game where you're just on the railroads of someone's story, which is like, yeah, no one likes to be railroaded. But they take it so far as to the point of, if it's not done in a random simulation style way, it's not actually a game, you know? That if there's some plot, if there's some narrative, it somehow takes away from player agency. Like, that's the whole thing, is these people argue against stories and narratives because they say it takes away from player agency.
When like it doesn't. Like, if there's a framework to act in, like, yeah, that's that. The thing that takes away player agency is a type of campaign I was in once, where basically it was kind of us just playing the DM story. Like, I had one of those games I was in, and the only agency we got is how we like talked in the moment and certain key choices. But a lot of it was like, okay, you guys do this, right? Like, everyone want to do this, and then the table's like, yeah, like that is take away player agency, because we don't really have that. We can't really like go out and do stuff that we want to directly do. It has to serve the plot and the story that's been completely written out. uh and God, it's the part that also, like, only later I was able to get, like, trying to like talk to one of these people, where it was really sad. I just want to talk to someone like that fully believes this face to face, because I need to know how far this goes. I'm so
Right.
curious. But like, the part I also brought up was because they start off the reply with, yeah, people, like, basically people need to be very clear about the games that they're creating, so that when people join, then like other forms of players like don't, basically, as he was implying, get trapped in a narrative game, a bad form of game. And I was like, yeah, 100%, you should sell it, like, actually detail out, because you want a session 0, so then people don't join and realize they hate the play style. Where I have been offered to join a game that way back in the day, like during high school, where when I was like, oh yeah, what's the game? It's like, oh yeah, we run through like dungeons and combat encounters, and I like push through it because I'm like, okay, please explain what you're talking about. Essentially, the game style was Diablo with no main like real story. It's just white room combat after white room combat, and I was like, I am good. And I relayed that story, and then basically the guy was like, no, that's not that doesn't happen. I was like, what? That happened to me. What are you talking about? There's the extremes of someone reading you their novel, as you sometimes say yes and roll dice, and person who runs just like gauntlet combat, boring combats. Both extremes can exist. It's completely normal. And honestly, I think a lot of it breaks down to like people who have had bad experiences with the type of play then ascribe the general method of play as the entirety of it. They come up with like a straw man thing of all narrative games are like this, and then when they hear anything story driven, they're like, oh, it's all like this bad railroady GM experience I once had. That's what it all reads like, is people who had a bad, like, one bad GM who's very railroady, and now they ascribe anyone who like tells a story through tabletop as that form of like GM.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess I don't know why there's question marks here, so I don't know what the question's being asked, but yeah, there's different styles of games, like Naruki is saying, sandbox or theme park, dungeon delve or world adventure. Like, very valid to have different styles of different games to play in different ways. A lot of time, we're like, all right, so this is the adventure. Make characters along this line, and it's fun to participate in an adventure like that because you know kind of generally what the story is, and you can tell an interesting story with your characters by making a character who's actually interested in the plot. Because so many times I've seen a game ruined where a character joins a game and then their whole character concept is, I don't want to be here, and that's so unfun.
That's lame. What's the point of being there? Like, another thing that always hits me with this is when I see this ascribed to like narrative play of, oh, telling a story in tabletop, that's bad. Where then I'm thinking of like, because that's our style. So like obviously I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And then I like break it down of I kind of approach tabletops the same way I approach CRPGs. I play my CRPGs very similarly to how I play a lot of like just our games. The difference is one is capable of improvisation, like going outside the bounds, and a lot more like person to person creativity, while the other one is me role playing in a very constricted form, like of a video game. But like the approach can be similar, just one is a lot more free, but it doesn't mean that like because I'm playing through a story that my GM is working on that I don't have player agency. Because you need a through line, you need something to do in your big open world game. I don't. It's that part that baffles me of just like how many sessions do people have of just kind of wandering, not doing anything? They're like, wow, what
Yeah,
a great game. I felt so free.
I know. It's just like, oh yes, we got into town. We killed the store shop owner and we got all their items, and now we're just running their store shop. It's like, that sounds funny, sure, but is that like a campaign? Is
That
that
sounds like a
a live-in
session.
game? Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you could do that, sure, but why? And also, like, for what purpose? And I'm not saying there's not, you can't have fun in a game that's improv completely based on player choice. I think that's completely fine. In fact, I would
Yeah,
honestly
super.
prefer it. But it's more just like, there has, you all have to want to do something, right? Like, you're all there to have an adventure. You're not all there to fuck around like it's like Minecraft or something, right? Where there's like no actual goal. Your objective is just to go around and do things, you know.
The thing that I'm wondering now is there honestly might be people where having the XP and the gold meter go higher is the goal.
Yeah, but
Because
even then, you still need to go and like find places for that, you know.
yeah,
Like,
I don't
but
know.
I get you. I
I
get you.
don't get it. Yeah. I don't understand that either because like my immediate thought of, oh yeah, you have a story where you take over a store and like run it. Oh, that'd be so cool. Okay. Now you're adventurers who can procure your own cool shit. And then like, oh, what happens? Does a bigger merchant guild try to like acquire you as a company? Do you accept that? Like, or do they try to squash you as competition? Like that
That could
oh
be
no, I'm
fun.
introducing a plot. I'm introducing a
Yeah,
storyline, Cam.
you
That's
just
bad.
introduced a plot, and now it's
No.
ruined, and you can't enjoy that anymore.
It's so God, it's so stupid.
It's so bad. You know
Also,
what?
I do
Actually,
think. Oh, what's up? I was
well,
gonna
I
read
was
chat.
we might be talking about the same thing, maybe.
I think we have.
I like Bovinicide's Frodo Baggins syndrome thing. Yeah, actually, Lord of the Rings is super terrible if it's only from Frodo's perspective.
Is that what that refers to? I've never heard of like that specific term.
I haven't heard of this term either, but my assumption is because the whole point, if you watch Lord of the Rings and you watch Frodo's parts, they're actually kind of bad. There's a big reason why they're not that big. They're like, they don't have that much actual runtime in the entire like trilogy.
The point is that he walks to Mordor, and like there are parts in there that are very cool where he's interacting with different parts of the story, and largely a lot of them are giving context of stuff because they get to Mordor relatively quickly. And then what then it serves to be is there's a large portion where they are giving context for the stuff that is important with Gondor, that like they're moving into war and that Mordor is now rallying support from both different nations and is gathering all their numbers to start marching out of Mordor. Like it serves other purposes than just Frodo walks to Mordor and throws the ring in the volcano.
I mean, Bilbo Baggins, similarly, like if you looked at something purely from Frodo's perspective, that story's kind of bad because the whole thing is just Frodo struggling, Sam being like, "Mr. Mr. Frodo, no," and Smeagol going, "Precious," and that's it. That's like, there's some interesting parts, and when you read the book, obviously it expands more on that. That's being very hyperbolic, but like,
when it's in the total package, it's good. But if someone made the Frodo Baggins cut, it'd be a little boring.
it'd be boring. But Bilbo Baggins, like,
Or not
I
Frodo,
disagree.
it's Frodo. Bilbo's fun.
Because even though he doesn't want to be there the whole time, he still opts to go. He just is like, the whole point is him finding his courage on his adventure. But
Yeah,
I will
it's breaking
admit,
away from the Hobbit mentality.
and that's what it is Bilbo is a very anomalous to hobbits, and that's kind of the point. But I do agree, having to deal with Bilbo in your game would be ass. Because
True, it would be
you're
very
just listening to
annoying.
him be like, I don't want to be, like, if I was listening to someone who's like, I don't want to be here the whole time, I'd be like, then go. Don't bother me with this. We know you don't want to be here.
It's like there are some, if you're a very good role player and that's part of the arc, I think you could do it like successfully. The thing that would have to be done is like by the end of like session 1, there's the inklings of, oh shit, I actually do kind of enjoy this. and then breaking from that. You can do it. It would take a very good role player to do it in a way that's not frustrating and annoying.
Yeah.
Another thing I do want to read from the chat because I think it's a good point. From Genghis Aries. I think some people have become so anti-railroading so much that they think literally anything that isn't directly player related or player driven is somehow anti-RPG, which I do think is a large portion. Because there's another tweet I saw that made the rounds, did very well. That was like, oh, what opinion will get you like this? But it was about tabletop games. And there were a lot of things talking about stories, but one in particular that got some flack was someone saying, like, people need to calm down about railroading. Sometimes having a linear story in your tabletop isn't that bad. And then the OP for thankfully was like, yeah, no, railroading is a term that is the negative effect when you feel the negative of it. Because if someone isn't railroading, you won't feel the tracks. But you can put players on the rails, but if you're really good at what you're doing and the players are doing excellently, like going along with it, working in tandem, you won't even notice you're on the train.
Yeah, and I mean, like, especially when there's a lot of things, for our Anima campaign, what I call the Astrid campaign, because Astrid is kind of like the main character.
Basically,
for that game. That was not a railroady game, but in the end, the players were being consistently driven towards one end point of the adventure. But it never felt that way because
never.
There's so many times you guys chose what part of the narrative you went to next. And like there was and then that's just my GM style in general it's just like, is it railroading if the GM knows what you're going to do before you do and just lets you do it? Like if the GM has prepared for you to take your actions, is that railroading? Because that seems silly to me to like to put that mentality of players do thing. I create world that has consequences. Players go to place and I'm ready for it and I have a plot line. Oh, I'm railroading because the players, I don't know how to twist it the other way.
I don't know. I do think though that another thing mentioned in chat is accurate. Like, it's just some players need to be giving motivation a goal. Some don't want any goal outside of more power and a level up. It's really hard to wrap my head around that, but I know for sure there are the players, because the one I was related to was stuff that I had when I was getting into D&D, where I was very good friends with a guy who had basically the exact opposite mentality when it came to tabletop, because he approached it from the games he enjoyed, which were like Diablo and stuff, where from his love of that meant he was super into builds and all he cared about was like filling out the build, getting stronger, and like that, power fantasy, playing a strong dude in a combat game. Then my mentality was, I want to play like a guy that could exist in the world of the game I'm playing. I want to tell like a really good story. And like we have the opposites of that, because I prefer really well done storyline single player games. I'm a big like narrative gamer. I like going through a story. It's fun. I'm a lore guy at heart. So it's that mentality that I cannot wrap my head around, where I'm like, you can just like play the game without like having something you're working towards larger. It's just you see the number go up, you're happy. Like I wish I could, I guess.
And well, in more ways than anything, this just proves like, why the fuck are people upset that there are different styles of tabletop?
That's the annoying part.
That's the frustrating part, because Black Lodge Gaming, their whole thing is, we're gonna gatekeep the fuck out of people. I'm cursing like for a reason, because it's so unnecessary for people to be like this. It's to gatekeep people out of a hobby to make our hobby better. So if you don't play the way we do, we're going to make sure you don't play anything. That is insane. That is like, one time I want to, but I at the same time, like, I'm afraid of the repercussions. One time I want to go through that one live stream they did where they were kind of talking about some of that stuff, and I want to do like a reaction stream to that, like us reacting to that stream,
it'd be really annoying. Not even for like both out afterwards, like it'd get really frustrating, like just the fallout of it, if any.
Right.
But just doing it, I'd be really annoying.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the point. We'd just be like, why are you talking about this? Like, the whole point is showing just how ridiculous it is, and everything like that.
Yeah, it's
I don't
there's
think we will.
No, I'd rather we not.
But it's very tempting to just sit down and be able to like refute the points live or something, because
they have a mentality, largely a lot of those people, of specifically even the Dragonlance tweet is the reason they don't like it is because like when people are like, oh yeah, but I mean they might have some problems, but they got more people into the hobby, and then they're like, that's the problem. They don't want more people enjoying the thing, because as they put it, more people in the hobby means the hobby gets worse. Which I gotta say, like, I feel like that specific take and the whole gatekeeper aspect of it is a thing you only approach if you are terminally online. Because I gotta say, as someone who's a giant 40k fan and does my best to not interact with a lot of aspects of 40k Twitter, because right now there's a whole fucking thing about it. Every week it's blew up even bigger recently, of talking about gatekeeping and the side of we're anti-gatekeep, we're pro-gatekeep. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, you know what isn't being talked about in my local tabletop like Warhammer community? This. And instead we're all just like, hey, you good for a game? Hey, you see the new model drop? Hell yeah. Yeah. And then that's the extent of it. It just, in normal out and about life with people, you're like, this is pretty cool. We're having a good time with like the hobby. You go on Twitter and they treat like Twitter opinions will actually dictate what the company does.
Right.
I don't know. It's fucking annoying.
Sometimes that happens though.
Sometimes it can, but when these companies are so big that like these tweets aren't going to give them any financial impact. Like it's not going to change their stock prices for like Games Workshop isn't going to be like, ah, fuck, a lot of tweets about this today. I guess we got to introduce this new thing everyone's wanting. Yeah. It's not going to happen like that. It's, I don't know. It's just like, just mute the accounts you don't like, or just don't interact with them and play with the people you do like. Problem solved.
Yeah. And let me address this, because I understand this viewpoint. So Some Ugly says, I think anyone should be able to enjoy the hobby. Agree. I do fear that politically motivated activists will enter the hobby and reverse gatekeep the original players out as problematic. So let's address this. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong or the way you feel about this is wrong, but the approach is wrong. One, reverse gatekeep is not a thing, first of all. Reverse gatekeep would literally mean try to bring as many people into the hobby as possible, which it doesn't infer to anything, right? Like that doesn't there's not like a polar opposite. It's you either bring people in or you try to keep them out. So that's not a thing. But the part here, the original players out as problematic. The people who go in who make this overly, I'm not saying that tabletop isn't political, but hyper politicalization, things of making points out of problems that no one is having, is something that I've seen and I understand. That's just gatekeeping from a different angle, you know? So these people aren't reverse gatekeeping. They're not against the gatekeepers. They're just another part of the hobby gatekeeping for their specific style of game. And it's not a problem ever, because that's just not... The thing is, right, with gatekeepers especially, and why it's ineffective, but why it is damaging, is gatekeepers are concerned that for some reason the people they'll be playing with will, or the games they'll be playing, will be changed by someone else coming into the hobby, which has never happened. Because you are going to play with your friends and play the game you want to play, you know? There's going to be people making tabletop in the way you want to play because the games you enjoy are like that. So for the people who are like overly politically charged in doing that, they're not going to change or kick you out of the hobby yeah, there's going to be people who are going to hate you for the way you play the game. That's exactly what we're talking about today in general. But you like to specify that kind of individual just means that you have a problem with their approach rather than just a general like understanding that let them do what they want to do. The 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 whole thing is, even with like this whole orcs as orcs thing, yeah, it you can just play them however you want to play. It's fine. No one is going to come to your table and stop you from doing that. People are going to be upset about it anyway, regardless of how you play the game, you know, whether you change your mind or not. And people are in your similar camp already playing it that way. So you can dislike what these people have or have an idea of or whatever. But just know it's that you guys are fine and you don't need to worry about it.
The real issue that a lot of this is from what it seems like, it's that fear of, you know, new people coming in, destroying the thing we once loved. And then the thing they always cite is things like Star Wars. And weirdly, all of these IPs that are bought by Disney, when it's one of those situations where you're like, my man, you're so close to the point. The problem is mass market, like capitalism. It is not a like fan issue, because it's what happens when people come in. They think it's really popular, and a larger company buys it, and then is then made to, we are going to make this thing produce as much money so we can increase our general capital. And then what happens is they make decisions on a higher up to affect things to give the most general mass market appeal. That is always how this goes.
Or what they think it is anyway.
Or what they think it is. And does it work? I don't know. People keep saying like Disney's killing Star Wars, yet Star Wars is making stupid bucket loads of money still. So I don't know. Must be working at some point for their bank account. But then alternatively, the like that problem of, oh, these people are going to come in and kick us out. I've seen the steps of like Hobby Infiltration comic. I think it's a stupid comic because like that's, I don't know, in any experience with normal people at a normal, like in a normal gaming environment, it doesn't really happen like that. It's just people enjoying and like being social. But it's the only method that could happen is if these people come into the hobby and then they make their method of getting their way into the company, working their way up to a higher management where they can actually wield control, which is not happening. It is people just entering like these companies, working on it. Things are changing, mentalities are changing, and a lot of it also very much feels like it stems from a fear of general change. It is a thing you really enjoy, be it from nostalgia or something else, and a lot of it is really anti from the word a new thing is happening or we are changing something. And a lot of change isn't even that major.
I agree with most of it, but I disagree that it's the idea that's the fear of change. It's the fear of being vilified for enjoying something that people are telling you is wrong. It's literally social like ostracism.
I can see that too. It is also, I think it depends on which thing you're directly talking about, I guess. Because I know Warhammer has a problem with that, where Warhammer had a very stagnated storyline for a while. And then a lot of people are very pointedly like, I don't like it, to the point where they started accelerating the timeline because then the game is changing. The story is changed in their eyes. And a lot of it is, do you know what happens in the story? No, I just don't like it. It happens, but there's nuance to that opinion. I made a very generalized statement for that. It depends. It's a case-by-case basis on that.
Yeah. And this is the thing. And again, as I've mentioned many times on this channel, I try my best to take the position of understanding and like validating as many people's playstyles choices. The whole orcs as orcs racism debate thing. So this is a really good point because it highlights what is the real problem in general. Like a lot of people like to play orcs as just stupid, dumb, semi-sapient, like brutish-like creatures, right? That go and fight and do whatever. And that's generally fine. You don't complain about whether goblins in your fantasy video game are attacking you or not, even though they're capable of speech, you know? You don't worry about that because they're just enemies. That's not the point. It's not supposed to be engaged in that way. And the idea of making that something that is well beyond that initial idea to the point of like, oh, you play orcs this way, you're a racist. It insinuates that people are bad people for treating NPCs as NPCs. Like, the whole point is not that they are sentient, it's that they're there as an intentional antagonistic force in a game that just so happens to be capable of speech. You know what I mean? And so you're right for saying, I just want my enemies to remain enemies. That's fine. And for people who are against that idea, it's fine for them too, because there are indeed sometimes traits that we've incorporated into certain kinds of enemies that are harmful. The idea that like any force that comes out of Germany is a Nazi force in like video games all the time, it was pretty damaging to actual German people. And to have the idea and stigma around the idea that the only thing they're known for is Nazis or whatever is pretty unfortunate, you know? And so obviously it's not the whole point, but there's nothing wrong with shooting Nazis. You know what I mean? Like, you just, it's just about levels of what people take certain aspects of things. And it's all, like, I had this conversation before about, like, it's just about values. It's what people value more. Your value as someone who just wants orcs to be orcs is, I just want to have an antagonistic force that I can fight without feeling guilty. You know, I just want to have enemies I can fight, engage in combat, because that's fun, and I think we can all agree combat in games in general is fun without needing it for it to become needlessly complicated. You know, that's a very valid concern. But you can't completely discount the possibility that some interpretations are damaging to people as well. And so the best middle ground is you need to establish yeah, and I mean, and of course, like, no one, like Klaus here, no one is the same, but there's some people who still feel that way. It's kind of like the whole goblin situation from Harry Potter thing, where there's plenty of Jewish people who are like, this goblins in Harry Potter doesn't affect me whatsoever. This is a nonsense issue, you know, versus people who are like, it uses old depictions and yada, yada, yada. It's like both sides have validity to it, you know? So it's not that people are afraid of change. That's not the case. People are afraid of having society like pushed against them, or not pushed against, turned against them in a way. You know, you don't want to be someone who likes something that other people finds distasteful, you know, even though you don't like it for the distasteful thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's there is a statement there. The whole thing with the discussion of the fantasy racism bit, and because yeah, when you really dig deep into some of the like the DNA of that stuff, there are shared stereotypes. It's like that is what people are seeing. The extent of which they're going to like carry out and fight for to be altered, 100%. But like, it's the thing of sorry, I saw the new thing. I worry about people who demand changes across the game instead of just at their table. They don't have power unless they can mass amount enough effort and monetary investment to that, because largely put, the people who are actively doing that are just loud, and if someone comes to that at your table, you can just be like, bro, can you not like just chill out? I don't know, like the whole discussion with like specifically the orcs, like and is having a fantasy race that is just all evil from the start, is that a bad thing? I don't know. It sounds like you can explore different storylines and themes in your game, because I can see, yeah, you have some creatures that are purely exist to be like evil villain fodder, and then you have the other one of like a game where it's like, oh yeah, in the game it's then learning, oh wait a sec, orcs have like culture and history, and they're all people, and you're delving into that, and that could be interesting.
Well,
It
and
depends
see,
on the story someone's telling, like, and then it could be taken on a case by case basis.
that's the thing though, right? Is that is like a thing that was already done for the
Yeah,
many times that orcs were just the villains and just that was the point. That's what made those story points valid, was the idea that they were just evil, that you go beyond. And it also brings value to characters who are like, I'm an orc but I'm not like other orcs, creating that level of uniqueness and individuality. Like, most narratives are designed on the idea that there was pointless hate in a direction, or not even necessarily pointless hate. There could have been very valid hate, but hate does not make the world right. It doesn't make things better. It's And that wasn't really the point in the end. It's
no,
more just
it's not.
people feeling like they're being made into a villain when that's not the case. And it's right. If you just want orcs just to be orcs in your game, you're not a bad person. Period.
Yeah, I still, at least boiling down to like the larger connecting like reason we're talking about this in the first place, I do think that a lot of this is a situation where I don't see it affecting your day to day, my man. If like a game is like the specifically being worried of activists coming in, like if someone's coming to your table, that's a different thing. People yelling on Twitter, especially the people that like I see a lot of this being written towards and like written about, are the people who come in and they don't even enjoy the hobby. It means that they're not spending money on the hobby. Therefore, they don't have a voice in it, because all these companies care about is the power of your wallet. Because if you really want something to change, you don't like an update of something, have a lot of people not fund it. Don't give any attention to it, because that'll get some fucking execs scrambling. You want something to alter, they release a small thing, you financially fund the shit out of that. So then they're like, oh, I guess we do more of this. That is how the world turns. And a lot of this, like, people coming in and ruining the hobby, when it coincides with it getting popular, it's not the people coming in, it's the executives coming in. It's the large companies moving in to give general mass market appeal, because that is how everything works. And there is a very strong culture of these IPs in these companies, strictly for media products, believing that what these are perpetual money printers. And that is the attitude up high. So when the money printers start spitting out money, they panic. And then they start shifting. D&D didn't fall because all the people got into Critical Role and shit. It started falling because Hasbro, and also releasing rules reference materials. I found this out. There's actual numbers on this in the tabletop industry. It is pretty well known that rule supplement books do not sell very well in comparison to core books. So, kind of interesting that D&D hasn't released a rule supplement book for like 3 years. That's the way of things. It's just money moving stuff around. And like, I don't know, whenever I see all these like the one in my circle specifically, Warhammer 40K, and people are crying about whatever, the big argument's always female space marines. That's usually all it is. It's a lot of situations where it's not gonna happen unless money is involved. And if you really, really care about it, just go hang out with people in your area who like the same things you do. Because then you'll see, it's just, I enjoy this, and I'm around people who enjoy it. And this thing that I'm in right now that isn't online, isn't on Twitter, isn't on YouTube, isn't going to change. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that any small portion of a hobby can be, or any portion of a hobby can be ruined by a loud minority is silly, because what tells more than anything is money, is what Alex is saying. So you just have to consider like the general player. And I think one of the big problems with things like Twitter and everything is you just see nothing but niche groups yelling at each other. And it's the silent majority of people who you just don't know what they want. And that can be hard. That can be like, you don't know how many people, it's not even on your side, are not against you, I guess, in a way. Because like, again, it's all about just how much value you have in certain things. As someone who just values like the idea of being a hero and facing adversity and all kinds of stuff like that. What the enemy's motivation is rarely a big thing. But if you value more looking into the cultures of characters and everything like that, then the story changes drastically. And you can have negative things in games for good reasons. One of the biggest points of like cartoons, right, is that someone in the cartoon is doing something bad, or protagonist has a bad viewpoint, and the whole point of the story is to change that. It's like slavery is inherently wrong, but being able to fight slavery, I think, is inherently a good thing. Being able to like objectively put yourself in a situation to be against that is good, because it makes people, more. It validates the idea that it's bad. Not encountering it and not dealing with it is not as good of a reinforcement. Not that it isn't, but I'm just saying that there's nothing wrong with players wanting to break up a slave ring in a game. If anything, that's a good thing, which means the game has to have a slave ring, to break up. So, and I'm not saying every game needs this. Again, this is a case by case. Everything is wrong. But games need negative aspects for players to do heroic things against. That's the whole point of media in general, is there has to be something wrong. Star Wars is all about an empire that's trying to control everything and fighting against that, kind of. There's a lot of other stuff in there as well, but like, when you look at the story as a whole, that's kind of the point. And Star Wars wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for the Empire. And most media you enjoy has some group that does something really, really terrible. Not that you can't explore ideas that like it's just it's us or them kind of thing. It's not inherently bad. But sometimes it's just good to have people fight negative aspects, because that's heroic and something that we value, like culturally. Is the ability to stand up against it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll also mention, because it was referenced earlier, I quickly had to double check that I was thinking the right person. Blaine Pardoe is not the guy to rep for when it comes to this. Not talking from a political thing, but this guy 100% was not fired for people on Twitter throwing up a shitstorm. There was other things going on behind the scenes. It's kind of clear he was fired earlier, the talks were ready, mainly because he was kind of siphoning the IP to work in his own independent project, which is going to be a very strong competitor to some of the other stuff he's been working on. So, I don't know. There's a lot of other situations, especially the fact that around the time it was happening, he very clear had a big meltdown, so also probably some psychological reasons. It is a lot deeper than Twitter activists making a thing where we are not getting the full story because legally that's not for us to know. So I still do not agree with the idea of Twitter activists move in to make things worse.
No, and because usually that's just not how it works. I said, it's the
silent
silent majority that typically dictates the industry.
Because people being upset on Twitter is not going to stop. Because all the Games Workshop worries about when it comes to like specifically Pardoe and his stuff is, are people buying his short stories? And then for the other company, are people buying the BattleTech stuff that he works on? If they weren't, then turns out that he's not that big of an issue. Let's fire this guy and get someone who's going to make things that are monetizable. It's always a money issue when you dig down.
Yeah. And, actually, an even bigger thing that's kind of just proof of the opposite. The Harry Potter game that came out that had a huge controversy around it because people just love hating J.K. Rowling and anything that J.K. Rowling has done. Not that J.K. Rowling is a good person.
But, yeah, I very much don't like J.K. Rowling,
But I'm saying that there's people who just enjoy nothing other than just hating her.
If your entire personality is doing that, you gotta go outside.
Yeah. That game sold insanely well because of it. Because it got so much, so many people just would not stop talking about it.
Exactly. The fix for all of it is apathy. Corporate and capitalistic apathy is the fix. You don't like a video, you don't like a content creator, stop talking about them. Give them no clicks, no views, no thumbs up, no thumbs down. The dislike button, hate comments, all they do is make these people more money. I
Yeah,
can point at this. There are
it's
trends.
true.
There are trends where in my videos, in Cam's videos, where we're getting like a little wave of people upset at us, and boom, suddenly more views because the YouTube algorithm is like, I want more people to stay on the site. This is making people stay on the site and comment. Let's give it to them. The only way to get things to not make money is to ignore it. Please understand that, internet. My God, I do it so well. I ignore so many things I don't like. It's
Yeah,
so easy.
it's because again, it's kind of just talking about the about what I was talking about earlier. It's just hate makes hate. You know, if two groups are hating each other, you just get a bigger event than what would have happened. It's just for all the people who are out there shouting about what they don't like, about the things that you like that they don't like, it's galvanizing the people who feel the opposite. Like it seems that Thumb Ugly here feels very strongly about a lot of this anti-woke discourse, or woke or anti-woke discourse. I mean, just evidence we have here. And like, again, it's not like all right or all wrong. It's just being upset about certain things that just aren't the thing. No one's coming in to take your hobby away. And if anything, these woke people coming into your game, I'm using woke in a very just bland sense, are just actually galvanizing the people who agree with you more, and are ensuring that what you like in the game is going to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also mention this for anyone else who's in this issue when it comes to we are in a very digital landscape. Everything we do is all social media and engagement and clicks and all this. Very boomer take coming here, I know. One thing I did years ago that I can say made me indefinitely happier was going through my social media, everything I follow, and click and unfollowing, muting, blocking all the people that directly are exactly that. The perpetually upset at something. Massive political commentary for things that aren't, actual political commentary and politics that matter. The politics of some dumb TV show. All of those things that like infuriate, all the discourse as it's called online. Getting away from it and then just being infinitely happier, because a lot of that, when it comes down to it, is actually a term known as digital self-harm, where you are directly going into something that then becomes a cycle of purposefully going into things that make you upset emotionally or psychologically. Separating away from that is a good thing. You should consider doing that. And to anybody here, this isn't directed at just you, Thumb Ugly. I'm not saying you're like this. I'm saying that this is a situation where if you step away, as the term touch grass, and go around that aspect, you'll be indefinitely happier in this day and age. Because if you really hate these things and want them to stop, ignore it. Be apathetic. It works so well. I do it all the time, and I'm happy.
Doom scrolling, yeah.
I do. Yeah, doom scrolling is bad. Just don't do it.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Just enjoy things you like.
So let me just make something clear. This is not about being against like what Thumb Ugly is saying here. I want to express purposely, I 100% understand the feeling of not wanting to be ostracized for enjoying a game in the way you want to enjoy it, especially when the way you're doing it is not intentionally harming people. You're not intentionally like using orcs as negative caricatures of certain peoples for your own sick purposes. Obviously, no one is saying that, and I know that's not what you're doing, and you just don't want to have to worry about whether orcs are your enemies or not in game. And I know it's more than just orcs. I'm just saying, like, as a general thing. The whole point of like this whole conversation is, I understand, and saying that what you feel isn't valid is incorrect. Just because someone disagrees with you and is upset about something that you're having a problem with doesn't make your feelings less valid. But the whole point of the conversation is, everyone is saying here, no one's actually hurting you. No one's actually trying to hurt you. And, it's valid to be concerned. And I think that's very fair.
Yeah. I think that last bit you hit on is just you enjoy want to enjoy the game, and you want others to enjoy it, and you'll keep playing how you want and how you enjoy doing it. That is the important key bit. Because I'll say, like, I agree with Cam here. I'm a lot more inflammatory in general. I don't keep his full approach, but like feeling a certain way, like being this worries me, this all that, very understandable. I don't agree with a lot of things you've said. I understand why you feel that way, and I can sympathize with that feeling because it does suck and seeing those trends come up. However, I also still stand with all my thoughts of it is an issue that is only perpetuated online. It is not as bad as a lot of people online make it look.
Yeah. And I mean, it's something that the world is never black and white in the end. There's no answers that are 100%. If anyone here was to say that, you know, someone who is hyper politically activist isn't causing harm, that's just wrong. Because like my sister particularly is very, very politically activist, and it makes conversations difficult because I just want to have a normal conversation and she's just bashing on things that I bring up, or like just because one small part is being interpreted in a very uncharitable fashion.
Yeah,
And that's
it's specifically
unhealthy.
it's the part where you're relating it to things that don't like have tangible bits. Because you're a political activist for like lobbying against something or gathering up like protests and movements for a new law that's passed. That makes sense. That actually tangibly affects your day-to-day life. If your political activism is I'm gonna get on Twitter and shit talk this new show that dropped, I don't know, man. That seems a little low on the totem pole. You know, you get me? Like that part feels annoying because that's something
Yeah.
I've done. That's something I would also see and recommend if it works for anyone else here. I'm a very anxious man. I have a lot of anxieties. A method I have that helps me kind of stem the outside universe bearing down on me is being very selective with what I value and care about. I'm a very apathetic man. That's why I go really far into like that is your method of protest, be apathetic. But primarily the things I care about are the things that will have tangible, real world effects on myself and the people I care about. And media doesn't, which is why a lot of 40k fans get on my nerves because I'm like, it isn't real. 40k can't fuck you. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's just a goofy game about space people. It's just fun.
That's the thing, and that's something that I want to work to clear up the muck. Is there's a lot of people who are like anti-woke. Again, I'm using that in a term so people understand. I'm not a big fan of using the term woke actively.
Not a fan of it.
It's not a very good descriptive term, but
it means literally
y'all know what I'm talking about when I use it. The thing is, though, is that a lot of people who bring up like anti-woke stuff and everything like that, people will 100% just discount a lot of what they're saying and not like take a step back and kind of walk through it in a way. It's very easy because they seem like they're not on your team. You know what I mean? And like Thumb Ugly here, I don't think is a bad person by any means. And that's why it's important to take a step back and be like, your concerns are valid. I'm very anti, like, I'm very, what's the term? Non-confrontational. I don't like being confronted about things, like, in a personal sense. It makes me highly anxious. So why I like controversy just makes me kind of anxious and antsy. And so that fear that you're going to run into that is valid. The fear that someone is going to suddenly disagree with how you say something or do something is valid, especially when it's something you can't get away from. I have to see my sister. I love my sister, don't get me wrong, but I have to see her, you know what I mean? So that fear of just saying one thing that isn't 100% correct is valid because it does just cause conflicts, mostly unnecessarily. Like for you, everyone has to be able to agree that for every anti-woke person who's very concerned about them changing whatever, there is a woke person. Again, I don't know a better word to use, honestly. there's someone on the opposite side who is doing the exact same way, but in the opposite direction. There's not like a pointedly good or bad in the situation. It's just people are arguing in a way that's very not appealing, because that's and that's the thing, is like, I want you to be here. I want you to be able to talk about what you want to talk about. Just as much as I want you to be here to understand that, like, well, when we're saying no one's out to get you, that's honestly the case, that like the people on the other side, they have as much ability to affect things as you have to affect the same thing. You know what I mean?
Which, I mean, at least immediate respect for the fact that, yeah, you're valuing the fact that a discussion is happening, not resorting to other weirder things that we've encountered when it covering some of these topics. Respect that. Still, like, it's totally fine to disagree on things, and like, as long as everything is approached from the general view of make this space a good one that people want to be in, and actually able to just communicate and talk. It's the part that I like about our Discord. I like that a lot of the tabletop discussions that pop up in the Discord are very much all of, oh, like, here's something I do, and someone like, oh, I use this thing differently for this reason. And it's very civil, in a very cool way.
Yeah, and
that's good with this community you've made, in that, like, the people that follow Bad Luck Gamer are very down to fully explain out their thought processes and like why they believe the thing they believe and why they like certain things.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so easy online to just discount people, because, right, like, what's an online interaction but a fragment of your day, a less than a percent of a day.
I do literally do that all the time.
And like, that's the thing. That's what a lot of people do. That's why I strive against that I take a moment to try to respect something everyone says. It's difficult because it's approaching humanity and people in general in the most unbiased way possible, by saying that let's take a moment to look at it. And that's what I try to craft here on the channel more specifically. I'm not going to be like those Black Lodge guys who are going to just say the way you play the game is wrong and no one should play that way. And I'm not going to be the completely whack Twitter activists who are saying, oh, violence in games is wrong, kind of person who just, like, if you enjoy actually murdering people, something is wrong with you, because obviously that's not why we enjoy, like, combat in games in general. No. You have to... People are just not going to take that time. People are just not going to invest. So what I can do, the thing that I can change, especially to help the tabletop community that gets so easily polarized because of these kind of concepts, is to try to appreciate what everyone says and try to help the conversation in the right way. Because, again, I'm sure, and if you're all being honest with yourself here, you probably have seen some things in chat that made you just kind of be like, nope, that's not right, or whatever, that's not what I think at all. And that thought is normal and is very human, but in order to make everyone, in order to make the space better, you have to be able to step out of that feeling, and you have to be like, all right, I see where you're coming from, and your feelings are valid on such thing. I understand why you feel that way. And even if I don't agree with the way you're taking it or your interpretation of it, like, that's a big thing, is interpreting what people are saying. And usually we can only go by so much. When someone is like, I just want orcs to be orcs, someone else is going to be taking that like, oh, I see, so you don't want to address the obvious racist things that is implemented into orcs sometimes. That's not what they're saying. That's not what they're saying. They're just saying, I want to fight an enemy and not have to think about it. They're not saying that's not right. Honestly, you would probably prefer if no one was hurt by how something is interpreted. But you also don't want to be yelled at for an enemy that honestly you didn't even put that much stock into anyway. Like, why do you have to care about what enemies you kill, what orcs you kill, whatever? Like, games need people to hurt. You know what I mean? It's just
mechanically, you have to have an enemy.
Yeah, it's like a necessity, right? No one. It would be frustrating to play a game with someone who, like, you're attacked by bandits, and a player got so angry at you because you just killed the bandits without tying them up, and taking them to a court or something, doing it the right way, doing it the legal way. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to care about that. You don't want to think, oh, does this bandit have a family? You're gonna be like, no, fuck this guy. He tried to kill me. I'm just gonna kill him back.
I'm gonna be controversial. I'm gonna devil's advocate in a way. That could be a really fun one shot of, like, let's play this tabletop game. Like, we're sitting down, maybe even like isekai into a fantasy world, but like everything is hyper detailed and very realistic, and you have to follow that. That'd only be fun for like a couple hours. But I think that would be a really interesting, like, little play, like, experiment session of, you have that encounter and then you're like, okay, we killed the bandits, and then like someone comes off like, you didn't follow like any of the normal rules of like self-defense or engagement. You're the criminal party here. You're under arrest. Like, very detailed bits like that could be fun for a short period of time, because going in that super detailed, I would die. I'd be so mad because I hate that.
I mean, yeah, and that's the thing is, like, in the end, and actually, Dead Phoenix brought up a point here that I think is very important to discuss. The problem is they don't care about the other side, who are hurt by the way these things have been depicted in the past, and oftentimes still is. It's maybe, but like, a person can only care about so much in a given day. No one lives 100% altruistically. You can only put so much energy out in one direction. And the thing is, it's not that they don't care, they just don't see it. You know what I mean? It's like the whole goblin situation. It's like the goblins in Harry Potter being bankers or whatever, right? No, most people when they saw that did not think about it. Most people on any side, really, it's purely anecdotal, but I've heard plenty of people, especially of Jewish descent, who just like, I didn't even see that at all, but some people did, you know what I mean? So does that make that valid or invalid? And it's all in values. It's all people can't put 100% stock when people are depicting orcs. Most of the time, they're not even using like the really like pointed, poor interpretations that make them kind of problematic. You know what I mean? You can't expect someone to value everything the same way you do. And literally, culture can't exist if everyone valued something the same, because then you get areas that are underworked, for instance. Like, you need people who value everything at every stage. But you can't expect everyone to value everything at every stage. It
is a thing where having the discussion is nice, and then like just bringing up, like, because it's always that situation where, I mean, brought it up earlier. There are those things for certain, like, it delved into certain fancy things that, like, when you trace the history back, you're like, that's where it came from. Yikes! But then there's the point where, is it so separated that it's basically the origin is so absolutely like obstructed? Is it still there? And having those discussions too of the stereotypes for this fantasy thing is really similar to the same really bad negative stereotypes for this group. And then having the steps to like that good conversation. And then of course there's the other sides that come in, the very loud minority on both sides of the like opinion, where they will fight very, very hard about it. Either like, nah, keep it in, or nah, we'll keep those stereotypes in, and you know what? We meant it. We want that to be there. It's like, that's a bit weird.
Then it gets that's
when it gets negative.
That's a problem. And again, that like further stating that like for each force there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
Like there is going to be, and like Death Knights, don't get me wrong, I 100% understand the way you feel about the being frustrated that people are just not considering these things or not putting the stock in them that should be put into them. I agree. I agree with the general statement. But, you know, it's unreasonable to also expect everyone to value everything the same. The whole concept of, like, the depictions of goblins, if people don't have an association with it, like, in a large general mass, like, understanding, it's like golems, right? Who uses golems in a thing and think, oh, we're co-opting a Jewish, like, myth?
Yeah, it's very inherently, like, that's where a lot of that comes from. It's also the bit of, I'm happy that nowadays they are being discussed, because I think artistically it leads to really interesting discussions and like discussions in art. Because you know what, I actually really like how Paizo approaches a lot of it. I think Paizo approaches going at these fantasy things with a nice twist that you can see the inspiration and feel like it's being respected. I like how Paizo does it, which is also why I'm so excited about the Jiangxi book. Because
yeah, the Chunxia.
Chunxia, I'm thinking of Monster of the Week. But yeah, the I'm so excited for that book, because everything I see kind of being teased about it, I'm like, oh hell yeah, that sounds so sick. Because also Pathfinder's doing the thing I really enjoy, and going away from the only representation of your fantasy is Western European. Cringe, gross. Give me African folklore, because it goes hard. African stuff is so cool. I really like when you really delve into it, African mythology, African like history, so sick. There's so much cool things to pull from if you just do it in a cool way. Same with what, like, this book coming out for Pathfinder. I think it's gonna be sick. And I think there's those methods where you can discuss it and be like, I see these possible issues. Is there anything I can do as I'm developing this? Do I want to lean into some of it? Do I want to just make that point of discussion? Or do I want to come up with something that is separate? I think you can have really cool through lines. Where I'm happy the discussion is happening, because I think it leads to a net positive in the art. And
yeah,
then, and Paizo's, I think, a really good example of that.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's exactly why I try my best to take the standpoint of just like let people talk. You know, if even if people, even if I don't agree, even if I don't 100% have the same values, I guess, in the same way that someone does about some things. Like, there are some levels of understanding that I'm sure we can come to, as long as you're a rational, normal person. Because rational, normal people tend to just, you know, be okay in general. And allowing someone who doesn't necessarily care about how orcs are interpreted is not necessarily a bad thing. But when you start getting someone who misinterprets it or interprets it in the worst way, then yeah, that's a problem. But that's what most people aren't doing. You know what I mean? Is people aren't using these things as cudgels to bludgeon. And so, you know, I value the ability to have a chat where we can have discussion on both sides. You know, regardless. It's important to have these discussions, because I do think that there are some concerns with, like, people caring about things that absolutely don't matter and are so small scale. It's like the whole co-opting golems situation I just mentioned before. Like, no one really thinks about that. Everyone just wants magic robots. That's why we're using golems. We're not intentionally trying to take that from Jewish culture, of course, obviously.
And yeah, the Dead Phoenix, those specific changes for the monster stuff, hell yeah, because that's the part that I'm always excited about, is the part where it's like, sweet, so actually getting to delve into what these creatures and like these name changes are for and about, rather than like something that is only existing in this state because some dude in the 80s said so. That's the part where I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm so down for the remaster. Because like breaking away from some of these traditions where I'm like, yeah, why are dragons like this? Why are they all metallic and like chromatic and all that? Why can't we have cool magic like tradition dragons? Because what, some dude named Gary Gygax said so way back in the day? What does he know? Well, why would we listen to that? Let's do some new weird shit. Which is always my thing. I always want something new and weird to come out.
Yeah. And I agree. I like, honestly, and I said this in my why you should play Pathfinder video. I'm excited to have people write about things that are more culturally relevant to them, especially because you're just gonna get, you know, like more of someone who cares about said thing rather than
That's that. Yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly. You can feel the passion. You can feel the love when you're reading that. Even if it's like the quality of it's not great. Like you sometimes you have that where you can like, objectively the writing for this like this creature, this book or whatever isn't the greatest, but you can feel that the person behind it cared. And that has a special energy to it in art that I value. And I think Paizo's a lot of that, which is what makes me so excited whenever a new source book comes out.
Yeah, and it's just kind of the and that's why it's like we sometimes it's just a different interpretation. It's not saying that your version of said creature is wrong. Like I think chromatic and metallic dragons are still an interesting, fun idea. I think that's great, you know. But like, let's have a different interpretation, and that doesn't remove the idea of chromatic or metallic dragons existing. I mean, heck, in tabletop, like honestly, some of my best work is all homebrew monsters anyway.
Yeah,
So
that's the stuff that's always the coolest.
it's like there's the it's all about just enjoying things the way you want to enjoy. And I feel like, especially not because I've necessarily been playing devil's advocate, but because I've been more vouching for not negative, for controversial viewpoints, I should state like my personal feelings on things. I think that I think having a reevaluation of some monsters and creatures is important, and we should be looking to remove possible negative stereotypes from things that we might not have noticed before. I do think it can be also overly done, and you can focus on things that are super unimportant or that people don't associate. Like, there's no reason to revive negative stereotypes from the grave just to prove a point. You know what I mean? We don't need to add more negative stereotypes to the world. If people have forgotten these stereotypes, leave them dead. But if there are things out there that obviously people need to that need to be changed, that need to be worked on, then yeah, totally. Having orcs with stereotypical piercings or stuff that we've seen from indigenous peoples, probably not a good take. Probably not a good take. You know what I mean?
Because I think as well, leaving it in there is a little lazy, artistically. Because you have this, and you're like, well, we've pointed out these stereotypes. You probably altered a little bit. There's some problems here, and you're like, yeah, but it's always been done that way. Boring, lame. Try to think of something cool and interesting that isn't, the aspect where you go so deep that it's like, wow, this is nothing now. You kind of gave me a blank, just a blank thing because you were really scared of not playing into any possible stereotypes. You over sanitize something to the point where it's now smoothed over.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point, as well as removing any possible connection with some kind of culture because you're trying not to be racist. And I mean, it's and this is something that happens all the time in lots of media. And again, why I want to take a point of okay, let's give people a chance to cook. Let's give people a chance to chat about it and discuss. Because I think everyone here is valid mostly. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a everyone is right kind of guy. I've banned someone from the channel before because they went off the deep end. You know. Fortunately, that hasn't happened too much. But it has happened because they just could not act civilly in any form or fashion. But don't be afraid. If you chat here and you're doing it with the best intentions, then I will do my best to understand and meet you halfway. But if you're just going to attack people in comments, chat, or whatever, then obviously you're not willing to participate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to state it because I don't want people getting the wrong idea who watch this after the fact of what my values are. My values are, that it's not bad to overlook it, to reevaluate things and to look them over, to remove things, but it's also not good to overly analyzed to the point of reviving dead stereotypes from the grave, because that only makes the world worse. And in many things, and when it comes to like woke, I don't like the term woke. I just used it because it portrays an image I think people can easily visualize, versus like hyper activists or like super left leaning or whatever like that. Woke is just a term that I think is a better caricature to aim at rather than actual groups, because I don't want to say like activists are wrong, right? Again, you need people who value things at different levels to make society work. There's things that you don't care about because it just doesn't affect your life, so people need to care about the things you don't care about so that those things can get looked after as well. You know what I mean? It's like people who have kids or who don't have kids who don't want to pay taxes towards schools because they'll never use them is ridiculous, obviously.
Yeah.
So, you know, like on either side, here at Bedlight Gamer, you can play the game the way you want to play, as long as you're not doing it in an intentionally malicious fashion, or even an intentionally what's the word? You're ignoring the bad aspect. You know they're there, but you're ignoring them because you just don't want to deal with them. That's not also necessarily okay, obviously.
It's the greatest thing.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not great. But obviously, if it's not super intentional, then you're fine. You can play orcs however you want to play orcs.
Yeah, there's a value to being a giant fan of something, and also being able to point out, like, for whatever reason, yeah, there's some problems there. Because you know what? I, as a man who has this, I have a berserk tattoo. I have the brand of sacrifice on my neck in the same spot Guts does. I have very long, very personal reason for this. But I can also say, you know what? Early berserk is a little gross in the fact that Muro was a little bit of an edgelord, and he really likes the quick example to make things dark and fucked up by just having rape and sexual assault. That's a little gross. And then later on, he moved away from that, and the series became significantly better for it. I think there's value in approaching it. And the part that I also like with the chat that's pointing out is how exploring cultures with having people who are connected with it in some way, be it at least like from the culture, brought up in the culture, or studied it a lot, like actually understanding it, just makes things really interesting, because I love humanity. I love just culture and what humans develop, and sanitizing it away for any possible, like, just making nothing burgers of things that used to be influenced by other cultures is really boring, because we should exalt the things humanity has created. There's a lot of different aspects to pull from to make some really cool art, and I want people to feel like, ah, shit, now my stuff's being shown off. Hell yeah, because it's a cool feeling.
Yeah, and also like the whole there's a lot of value to exploring light and darkness in the same vein. So I never saw orcs as a real world waste. Okay, so this is these two comments right here are a really good example of the discourse. The thing is, though, is if the whole points of orcs existing in a game is just to die, does it really matter? You might say yes, but obviously, like, the other person disagrees. So how do you come to a conclusion on this? You know, like, what's the middle point? You guys have different values on different stock you put in certain aspects. And to be fair, when it's a game of imagination, very rarely is a GM ever describing every racist or potentially racist aspect of an orc. Usually, you see this massive orc, big tusks, green skin, lifting a war axe over its head. You know, it's it rarely gets that deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there can be 100%. There are pieces of media that if you delve, especially like older fantasy years and years back, where you will start to see the subtext, whether or not someone fully intended it to be there. It's that thing of nuance at the end of the day too.
I've definitely seen some interpretations of orcs that are very, very rough.
Yeah,
Uh,
God, there's some. It's
there's
the
some really bad ones, and
There's some
it
bad ones, and then there's some where you're like, yeah, I mean, there's nothing really here. It's like that specific discourse when it really dropped. A lot of the instigator of it, the like, what was it, the extra credits, they pointed specifically at 40k orcs, and it's like, listen, there's actually nothing here for 40k orcs. They're making fun of British football hooligans. There is like you're making fun of a subsect of British culture. Like that is what that is poking fun at, and very inspired by specifically like Lord of the Rings. Uh, that is an example of like, yeah, there's really nothing here to complain about. And then there's some other fantasy stuff where you're like, oh, boy.
yeah. And to be
You're
fair,
not
and also
concerned.
like saying I know, like even if Thumb Ugly doesn't know the history of those stereotypes, right? Is that a required knowledge to play games? Is to research every possible stereotype? So, it's valid to say it's important that we look at this. I agree. Yes, I agree with that for sure. It's important to also understand that people just don't have the same width of knowledge or experience, and the creatures are probably very rarely as important as all that information is concerned. You know what I mean? So, and again, I'm on both y'all's side. I completely understand you, Dead Phoenix. I completely understand where Thumb Ugly is coming from. No, but if you're complaining that people are talking about this and saying maybe it should change, there. No, but if you're complaining that people are talking about this and saying maybe it should change, there is an issue. Well, again, that's not the problem. It's more of they're not. It's a misinterpretation of what that person is feeling. They're complaining about people saying it, yes, but they're more upset about being called, like a racist for something that's obviously not racist on as far as intent is concerned on their behalf. You know what I mean? You gotta look at it from what they're actually arguing, not like, yeah, there are people out there who are just tired of people bitching and complaining and don't want to listen. Those people should open their ears and listen. Obviously, that is correct. But you can't attack every single person, even because that might not be what they're actually complaining about. Thumb Ugly is more concerned about being told that they're playing wrong, or that they're intentionally misinterpreting how orcs are done, when that's not the case, obviously, for them. So but I value the fact that you bring it up. I value the fact that you're willing to stand up for it, because that is necessary.
It's very important to have that.
But it is important to say that, like, everything has to be case by case, even though that's a big pain in the butt, to take every single conversation. And the thing is like, you might not value coexistence as much, who knows? But I appreciated that you would bring it up, because it is important to have that voice just as much as anyone else's. So with that, we've gone well over time, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you all so much. Sorry this last chat just kind of got super armchair psychology-y and
we did a little
overly intense. I think it's important to have a conversation like this every once in a while. I think it's important to state, like, especially for the channel, with the purposes here of, as long as you're being a rational, like, person, I'll have a discussion with you, and we'll chat with you here on the channel, and we'll talk about these subjects.
It's great to have this conversation when I'm feeling slightly loopy of the fact that I'm not allowed to take the medicine I need to make my head stop hurting. So, it is quite fun. I'm in a weird giddy mood for some reason, despite everything. So it is a good conversation that we have. And you know what? Table Talk, staying on subject, I don't know about it.
Yeah, well, of course.
It's not us.
No, it's more like, I just don't want Table Talk to be very deep necessarily every time. But once in a while is fine.
Yeah, we talk about it every once in a while. Then the next one is just you yelling at me for me making a very unnuanced, generalized statement.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
And I mean, like, this is completely the anti of that. in
Yeah.
general. It's just like, no, everything has nuance, you know.
Everything completely does. It's just it is fun to reduce things down to generalizations sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing is like, I take the community very seriously. I I want people to come here to feel like at least what they're gonna say is gonna be heard, you know. And sometimes people are just bad at communicating and arguing, and so having someone to help straighten things out to what people, because obviously like the longer gets here, like, yes, exactly, that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm trying to say, you're hitting the nail on the head, and you're fine. No, you're fine, Thumugly, don't worry about it. You don't have to apologize. It's not just you. We started this conversation literally on, is it okay to have narrative in games or not? So we were kind of already on the general subject matter. This is just something that is, you know, this is just an extension of like why people have discourse. And I think it's fine to have discourse. It's completely okay. But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try to make sure that it's done at least in the most genuine fashion possible without people being discounted or discredited for just disliking something you like or think or feel, you know. Because in the end, if tabletop's going to work, everyone has to come together and work together for a better future, you know what I mean? Obviously that doesn't mean being okay with racism. Obviously that doesn't mean being okay with things that are anti people in general.
There are
Obviously.
the stuff where it's like you do gotta boot them. There's some people where you're like, you gotta go, man, you
Yeah,
gotta.
obviously. But what this conversation was more about is feeling targeted for not having the same values as someone else, which is not correct. Obviously, you're not a racist. So I think anything that would imply as such is disingenuous. You know what I mean? Not that it's not a problem, not that being ignorant to things is a validation for being okay with it, but it's an understandable feeling to not want to be targeted. And like and tabletop in general, people can enjoy games the way they want to enjoy, and as long as you're not hurting anyone, as long as you're not doing anything maliciously or intentionally ignoring problematic elements that are very obvious, I think everything is okay. As long as we're not intentionally ignoring things that are intentionally harmful, it's okay. And I don't think anyone here is doing that. So, but that's gonna be it. Anything you want to leave us off with, sir, before we head out?
Go check out my channel. I talk about Warhammer lore and vampire lore and other stuff sometimes. Just Glue Boy on YouTube, linked in Cam's little channel friends thing, or you can just look me up on it. I made a video today about Vampire the Masquerade on Clan Malkavian, my personal favorite clan in VTM. Pretty fun. I found out that their entire history is completely contradictory to a lot of things in a very fun way. Self-contradictory and shits on the history of some of the other clans in a funny way. So yeah, if you want to see that, go check out my latest video.
Nice. I will hopefully be having less controversial charged videos soon. I'll be releasing the How to Play Pathfinder 2E, which should be good. I want to do a nice, very easy, concise beginner's guide. It's not going to be necessarily super advanced, but it should be a video that'll give you everything you need to know if you hop into the tabletop for like your first few sessions. And in addition to that, I'm excited. This year we have a lot coming out for Pathfinder, for Starfinder, maybe for D&D, tabletop in general. Maybe we'll get Daggerheart. Like, there's a lot coming out for tabletop this year, and this channel is going to be on the front lines, looking into a lot of it, and as well, you know, trying to make the tabletop space a better place by making sure that everyone gets a voice, you know, no matter what side you're on. That being the case, we're going to go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.